Buongiorno, very good morning everyone. Charles here, Frgnt Daily Chart Analysis, Frgnt Mastery, FrgntForex.com. Very good morning to you all. The time has just ticked past 10 a.m. local time here in Milan, Wednesday the 1st of April. Happy April Fools, happy quarter two. See you later to quarter one. What can we say about the summary? Quarter one was very much so up and down. Nevertheless, happy trader, happy investors. We ended the quarter in profit, and to be honest, it just goes to show that trading is very much so a marathon, not a sprint, I should say. And that is very cliche. I get it. You've heard it all before. But once you start to put those cliche terminologies into practice, you really do understand that it is, as I've written on top of my chart, it's a sample of trades. And the only thing you can do is show up, execute to the best of your ability, attempt to make as very little trading error as you can, attempt to not be swayed by FOMO, all of the good stuff that you've heard over and over again. And really, as I look through my trading journal, as I've done yesterday evening into this morning, I've seen that pretty much if you're able to just rely on your trading strategy, rely on what you know works best, rely on the higher time frames, rely on the DXY, rely on your skill, your technical analysis, plan your trades, trade the plan, all of that good stuff, again, that I know you've heard over and over and over again, certainly from myself. Manage your risk, manage your position. You'll be okay. You know, we are trading in, again, I say it again, very difficult circumstances. The globe is governed by what is going on at the moment. Hedge funds are losing money. Very reputable traders are admitting that they are finding it difficult as well. My close-knit circle of traders that I tend to bounce ideas off of, talk to every now and again, it has been a very testing time. But nevertheless, we took some good trades along the quarter. We are up for quarter one. And at the end of the day, once you recognize again that it's a marathon, not a sprint, what does it matter from a day-to-day perspective? Again, it's just a sample of trade. So here we are, quarter two. Let's get going. The DXY, something that I've relied on heavily over the last quarter as a result of the catalyst really governing, as I've said, the globe at the moment financially. We'd be a bit silly, or I would be a little bit foolish not to analyze the DXY to the highest level of standard that I do across all my other pairs. Once I've done that, or once I started to bring that into my analysis a lot more over the quarter one, then I was finding a lot better consistent results in terms of even anticipating when to move my trade to break even anticipating when is a better time to actually say, well, that's great, let's take funds off the market at that stage, right? So let's lead with that again into quarter two and see where we can go. So the DXY at the moment, let's get started. Weekly time frame, top right hand chart, what do we see? The last week's weekly candle closed above that weekly 50 MA. As well as that, if I start to bring everything into your attention, there is one particular candle that occurred on that weekly time frame that really showed all the signs for us all. If you are on Frgnt Mastery, you would know this already. But that weekly candle closing bullish above that area, highlighted by this green arrow here, really gave away that, in fact, okay, it's probably time to stop shorting the DXY. We really have now closed above that area. And in quarter one, I was looking for shorts. Where are we? So that's November, so certainly not there. But in and around most of these areas on the weekly time frame, I was seeing areas in the market where I should be looking to short the DXY. But unbeknown to myself, America then goes to war and the DXY starts to tank, right? So once we start to bring that into our scan, it's happy days, it's consistent trading again. So above that weekly 50 MA, I'm expecting this current weekly candle to want to pull back down after a high is created in the market. Naturally, I'm then expecting a higher low for a high continuation. That's basic price action structure and trends. So currently on the DXY, in my opinion, we are in a very nice place for potentially a turnaround. Why does that matter for me? Well, if I can see a turnaround towards the upside on the DXY, potentially, Charles, you should be looking at potentially shorting AU, GU, and EU, and even taking a long position, let's say, on US dollar CAD. You will see how that contrasts slightly in terms of my analysis that you'll see in a moment. That US dollar CAD, in my opinion, I think it looks quite good for a short position. So already, there you go, as you can see, already for me, that's saying, right, you need to use that DXY to understand, is the DXY ready to short by the time US dollar CAD gets up there? Can I see an area in the market on the DXY where the DXY is looking to short momentarily? We'll get back to that in a minute. So the DXY, again, let's go to the bottom right hand chart, which will be the daily time frame, to understand, again, really just to highlight that we are most certainly, in my opinion, bullish for the long term, at least for this week, in my opinion. Nevertheless, it doesn't mean we can't manipulate any weakness coming out of that DXY for an intraday perspective trade. Right, bear with me because my drawing tool has moved into some minimized type of format, which I'm not used to. But nevertheless, as you can see, price had made a low from this area, and then we've had that very important closure above that area. So naturally then, after this higher high, expecting a higher low, we've now made a higher high, and we're coming into what I perceive as a higher low area for potentially a high continuation. Very basic. Can we understand that once we then superimpose it onto a 4-hour time frame, just for that extra added confirmation that potentially, yeah, the analysis is correct. The DXY could look for a turnaround at this point. Let's look to short AU, GU, and EU. Right, so where are we? On the higher time frames, 4-hour time frame, where are we? Again, we can just simply see much of the same, which I've mentioned on that daily time frame. After this high, price has kind of hovered around into the area, but most importantly, after this higher high has been made, we now confirm that higher low. Higher high, potential higher low area. We now need to understand, well, why, Charles, could this be a higher low area? Well, we've got this 4-hour order block. We've refined that area down from the daily order block towards the upside. We've got that weekly 50 MA as well. Let's bring that back into the scan. Holding price up to the upside. Daily time frame. We've got the daily 50 MA holding price up to the upside. Of course, the daily 50 MA, it's playing a bit of havoc in that area, because naturally when that daily 50 MA is in the vicinity, I really do expect, because it is a Wednesday, I am of course expecting a rejection from the weekly time frame. That's a given. So on the weekly time frame, we've got 2 days and 15 hours left for price to close above and reject that weekly 50 MA. But in terms of the daily time frame, we've got 14 hours and 50 minutes for price to potentially want to come a little bit further, then reject that daily 50 MA, and then start pushing price towards the upside into Wednesday and Thursday. So that's the only caveat at the moment, whether I want to come to the conclusion that the DXY is really ready for the turnaround now. But nevertheless, if we get that confirmation, then I'll be looking to take that into consideration and potentially look for a long position on the DXY, which would counter for AU, GU, and EU shorts. Right, so that's what we have. Currently, an additional hold up on that is the fact that the 4-hour 50 MA is now here in that 4-hour time frame. So again, rinse and repeat, like what I'm doing on all other time frames with the EMAs. After this break below that EMA, I'm expecting now price to really want to come back up into there. Show me some signs of rejection before potentially bringing price back down to create what would be it would be a lower low, certainly on the 15-minute time frame, but on the bigger picture, it would just give us more reason to look for a long from that area. So I'm a little bit hesitant at the moment, and I'll explain what would be a better case scenario for us to be, or rather for us to have the confirmation that the DXY is ready. So the first thing that I'll mention here on the 4-hour time frame is the best case scenario. If I go to play a round of golf, and I get back and I see that the DXY has closed above that 4-hour 50 MA by way of 4-hour bullish candle. That's the confirmation that I need. So at that stage now, not only am I trading alongside the weekly 50 MA, I'm trading alongside the 4-hour 50 MA, and I'm also trading alongside the daily 50 MA. To put that even into better perspective, if price could come down, then close above, even better, because let me bring your attention now to the 15-minute time frame. What that would look like is if we get a bullish candle closure above that 4-hour 50 EMA, we would have some significant breaks of structure on that 15-minute time frame. Even better still, if price drops down into that daily 50 EMA, what we would have is something similar to this, where price starts to trend down, pops into the daily 50 EMA, will then have the breaks above, closure above that 4-hour 50 MA, expecting a pullback for that continuation long for the end of the week, rejecting that weekly 50 MA. Again, this is all in principle. This is just what I would like to see. If the market gives me something different, I'm going to have to adapt to that and see whether that makes sense across my cross pairs to potentially look for a position sooner rather than later. So the first thing I'll be looking to do, if my ideal scenario doesn't happen, I just want to highlight some areas in the market where I can see that price is struggling to break above. We now have that, in my opinion. So really, instead of me making this video, I should be looking at AUD US dollar potential shorts. But as I've said, that doesn't necessarily mean we're ready. Looking at the 15-minute time frame, what are we doing? We're still very much so in that downtrend. There is no real clear reason why after a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, there's no reason for me to anticipate a turnaround right now, simply based on the fact that price is making a lower high on that 50-minute time frame. As I've said, the ideal scenario is for price to want to do that, then pull back and come back in the area. So that's the DXY. We've spoken about it to death, but if you can understand the DXY, if you can understand the turnaround points on the DXY, if you can understand that, well, once price gets down to here, it still doesn't mean that the DXY is weak long term. It just means that the DXY has pulled back into a better position where I can look for a long on the DXY, which should then align me to take a cross pair short or even US dollar CAD long. So we'll get into that now. So I hope that makes sense. And while I'm there, just a quick reminder that, of course, on Frgntforex.com, there is a 7-day free trial where you'll gain access into Frgnt Mastery, where I do much of this pretty much every day, but it's scheduled down to 12 calls per week. And it's a great place to be. 12 calls per month, as my wife is screaming to me. It's not 12 calls per week, because she would never see me if it was 12 calls per week. I'd be stuck on my computer. So that's 12 calls per month. Frgntmastery.com. Feel free to take a look at that if you need some guidance, particularly in your trading. Let's take a look at the cross pairs that I'm looking to trade today. While we're on the DXY, we'll go to a nice cross pair. AUD US dollar. So remember what we said on the DXY. Looking for an area in the market where price is failing to break above. It's now broken above, and it's actually left a beautiful order block behind on the DXY 15-minute, where there's an imbalance left behind. So to be quite honest, I will be looking at taking this position shortly if it aligns nicely across all the other pairs. So let's have a look what we have. So AUD US dollar, you will see some illustrations on here because I've done this video already this morning. It didn't save, so hopefully this will be the final time that I do this video. So weekly time frame, what do we have? Price failing to break above and below this area in the market. That weekly candle last week finally closed bearish below that area. So naturally, after a lower low, what am I expecting? A lower high, lower low continuation. That's the reason for me taking a short position yesterday from the areas. And then if we bring that down to the daily time frame, you'll literally just see it more, just a little bit cleaner and clearer. What we can also see is a daily order block that we are soon to use and soon to attempt to manipulate. What we have also here, that daily 50 MA, remember on the DXY, price hasn't yet tapped that daily 50 MA to the lows. And we can see here also that price hasn't tapped the daily 50 MA on AUD USD to the high for a potential rollover. So again, that's why I'm not being impulsive. I'm just seeing what can happen. It's a long quarter, it's a long year. We'll see what's going to go on. However, why I am very much so interested in this trade is the 4-hour time frame. You know me on the 4-hour time frame. I like EMAs, I like price action, I like structure. What can I see on that 4-hour time frame? For me, it's as clear as day. There's my drawing tool. Here we go. We've had lower low, which broke out the market, lower low confirmed, lower high potentially. Well, why, Charles, could this be a lower high? As I've said, daily order block, daily 50 MA, 4-hour 50 MA, even better, where price is now pushed up into. We've got 44 minutes, hoping that this current candle will reject that 4-hour 50 MA to the downside. Better still, hoping that this 4-hour candle doesn't break above that 4-hour order block. That would cause a little bit of problems for me, because there are no other 4-hour order blocks available refined within that area. Therefore, for me, if I don't have that 4-hour order block, what I'm going to need to see is price then break and close below that 4-hour 50 EMA. So it just means I'm going to have to sit on my hands a little bit longer before being interested in that short position. You will see that nice illustration. Very wishful thinking for me, hoping that this 4-hour candle pushes up, taps that daily 50 EMA, leaves me a wick to the high, and still closes below that 4-hour order block. If that happens, great news. If it doesn't, we'll still be in the markets looking to see for shorts. Now, as I've mentioned, price action looks good, lower lows and lower highs. It's clear as day for me on that 4-hour time frame. Now 15 entry time frame, or the beginning of the entry time frames. Want to see if it makes sense. Remember what we said on the DXY, area in the market where price is failing to close above and below. I don't see that price is clearly ready at the moment, hence why I'm still making this video, not being impulsive to take some shorts just yet. As we can see, higher highs, higher lows, higher high into the area, actually broken above this 15-minute order block, so it's not great news for that 15-minute order block, and technically that order block now needs to be removed as a result of breaking close below that order block. I'm now pretty confident that this is just a pullback, this is just a higher low, and potentially we are going to move a little bit higher before maybe the turnaround. So the best case scenario for me here, I'll always show you guys the best type of scenario. We want to see this current 4-hour candle do not close above that 4-hour 50 EMA, hopefully continue to reject it to the downside with that 44 minutes remaining. What I would love to see is price just snap some areas. If we can have a break of structure, a snap of Asia, pull back into imbalance by way of 15-minute order block left up at the highs, then I will be looking to take that at a lower time frame break of structure, if not a limit order. Being quite honest, I like that area, and I like the confluence that we have with the DXY, so hence why I'd be quite aggressive in that situation, because the analysis looks good on this pair and the analysis looks great on the DXY. So that's me at the moment on AUD US dollar. Of course, for longs, if I want to take a long position, I need to see whether the DXY is going to weaken. So the first thing that I can highlight straight away is a 15-minute order block right there at the lows that caused that incredibly nice move towards the upside. So we'll pop that in there for later, and I've got my alert set there. I'll pop this alert just above that area, and I'll have an alert if price wants to make a move to the downside. No idea what's going on today, so what I'll do, I'll move that alert to there, so I'm in the game. So that's AUD US dollar for me at this time. Let's see what else I like. Here's a good one to confuse everyone. US dollar CAD. So Charles, you've just said you're expecting DXY strength, so why would you be looking to short the US dollar CAD? Let's get right into it. So currently weekly time frame, here is something straight away against my position for shorts. We have closed above that weekly 50 EMA by way of bullish engulfing candle above that weekly 50 EMA last week. So any short positions I'm looking to take are going to be short-lived, in my humble opinion. It's not financial advice, it's just my version of technical analysis. So can I also support reasons why I could be taking that position? Absolutely. We've come into a higher time frame weekly order block where price has made that move to the downside. We've actually made a lower low in terms of most recent lows that have now been broken. Let me bring my illustration tool out for you guys. So price had a low here, came back up for what we were perceiving could well be a lower high. That's now confirmed as a result of that lower low. So naturally price comes back into that area. I'm expecting a reaction. That's all I'm expecting. I'm not expecting US dollar CAD to fall out of the moon. It's just a reaction that will allow me on an intraday perspective to take a trade, move it to break even, and get on with my round of golf that I've got scheduled later on. Now, why else can I foresee price to make a move to the downside from that area? Well, refined within this weekly order block, we've got that daily order block as well. The price is reacting beautifully from, as again, price hasn't closed above that area. We've thrown wicks to the high, suggesting there is definitely some liquidity in that market, and I want to look to take advantage of the little bit of liquidity that may well be there. It's as simple as that. I have no expectation. I'm just going to see the setup, execute if it makes sense across this particular pair, and if it makes sense with the DXY as well. So 4 hour time frame, there's not a lot going for me, I must admit. So this might be a pair that I just sit back and see what happens. On the 4 hour time frame, we are incredibly bullish. Of course we are. So is the DXY. There is even no real areas in the market where I can look to identify to take a long position from until I'm down at the lows. So with that said, that's also helping me to take short positions. Well, if I can't take a long for a moment, perhaps I can take a short position down to an area in which I'd look to take a long. If I don't want to do that, well, I just put a red X through the pair and get on with my day. However, as a result of the bearish engulfing candle that, or I'll just call it bearish for now, this candle here that has allowed me to select this 4 hour order block, I'm going to seek if I can manipulate that. Why? Well, I've got range down to the 4 hour and weekly 50 MA where I am expecting a rejection towards the upside from. So although I can't highlight any areas, I can't highlight a 4 hour order block in this leg where I look to buy from. But what I will see and what I will say is I will use my EMAs to guide me. So if I'm expecting rejection from this 4 hour order block, 4 hour 50 EMA today, if I'm expecting a rejection from this weekly 50 EMA within the next couple of days, these are my targets. So if I'm going to take a short, I know I've got to be out the market by price hits these areas because I could well run into a bit of this higher high. And I don't want to be doing that. I just want to get in, manage my position, get out. That's intraday trading. So what's that mean, Charles? How can I take a position? Well, this is what I'm going to be looking to do. Nothing immediate, I must be honest, and nothing concrete until I get the confirmation from the DXY that the DXY is indeed bearish. Well, we are moving, so that's good news. And we're moving in a good way, to be honest. I would like some structure points on US dollar CAD to be broken, as you can see by this red illustration. Excuse me, my dog is going absolutely bananas. Okay, I think she's good to go now. I would like to see price break these structure points. We've had one break of structure here. Not very convincing. All that could be, as I've mentioned before, just after this higher high, a higher low. So I don't want to run into taking a position here, assuming that it's ready, and price just make that higher high, and off I go for my first stop loss of the quarter. Want some structure points to be broken. Tell me that the area is an area where I really want to be shorting from. The order blocks are already there, pretty much waiting for me to manipulate as and when price gets there. However, I will need to see some confirmation up at those highs because of what we've spoken about. We've got very clear targets in the markets. 4 hour 50 MA. In, out, get on with the day. So if my alerts will work, finally, crossing up, crossing below, once we get that break of structure, I'll be looking for price to return to these areas, and I'll be looking for a short. As I've said, if it aligns with the DXY. If the DXY is just looking to go continually bullish from there, that means I need to wait for clear confirmation on these areas. If not, forget it altogether. So it's a nice pair to confuse you all and even confuse myself. But nevertheless, as a standalone, it looks like a nice setup. Of course, nothing is set in stone, right? And to be honest, knowing that I think that the DXY is bullish long term, it might just be something that I let go. But it's definitely one that I'm monitoring nevertheless. So that's US dollar CAD. What else can I ship into the analysis for now? So we've spoken about AU. GU, I'm not really going to go there, to be honest. I'm looking for GU longs from the lows. Could I be interested in GU shorts? We'll get back to it. GCAD, I like GCAD. I think I like GCAD. Let's take a look at GCAD. So weekly time frame. Last week's weekly candle. Where's that weekly 50 MA when I need it? Okay, it's here somewhere. So we at, I don't like GCAD. No, I don't like GCAD. The weekly, for some reason, my weekly 50 MA label has gone, but I can still see that EMA just here. And I see the most recent weekly candle close above that weekly 50 MA. Yes, we are pushing into a higher time frame daily order block. But with that said, I mean, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So weekly 50 MA, I'm going to have to put it in because without it showing, it's going to be a bit annoying. So let's call that what it is, weekly 50 MA. I don't know where it's gone or why it's gone, but there we have it. price closed above the weekly 50 MA. So of course, I'm expecting a rejection from that area. So again, if I am going to look to take a short position, much like what we discussed on the previous pair, I've got very clear targets where I need to be out the market by, because I am going to be expecting a reaction to the upside from that area. With that said, the reason why potentially I do like that position is as a result of price action on even the daily, but we'll get to the 4 hour in a moment, but more so the 4 hour. But the daily, this daily order block is holding price to the downside. And what I like about yesterday's daily candle is we rejected the daily 50 MA. Was everything moving to perfection, leaving a wick to the high. And as I can show you guys, when I superimpose that previous daily high onto the 4 hour and 15, it looks even cleaner. So we're trading alongside the daily 50 MA, we're trading against the 4 hour 50 EMA, and we're also trading against the weekly. However, it's a Thursday, so I've got a bit of time to trade into that weekly 50 MA before definitely I'm expecting that rejection for the end of the week. So I don't mind it. Now, looking at the 4 hour time frame, here's a nice reason why I do like that trade. Structure, price action, how are we moving? Right, here we go. Let's see, where's my lines? I'm not enjoying this drawing tool down here. Right, so we made a higher high, higher low, higher high into the area. Now, what this could be, one or two things. It can either be the higher low for a potential higher high continuation, or this could be the first break of structure, the first break of that 4 hour 50 MA, low created in the market, price pulls back up into a lower high for a potential lower low. Do I think it's going to be a lower low? No, I do not. As a result of the time of the week, or rather the day of the week, and understanding that, the most recent 50 MAs are going to be looking to reject that towards the upside, particularly the weekly and now the 4 hour 50 MA, which price is now closed above and we've rejected towards the upside. So again, if I'm going to be looking to take this position, it's going to be one of those quick intraday perspective trades where I need to manage my position sooner rather than later. I have that very clear in front of me. So now looking at the 15-minute time frame to try and understand, can I take a position? Well, here's probably why I'd said I like that position. On the 15-minute, if you are going to look at trade on the 15-minute only, it looks quite nice. We can see here that 4 hour break of structure, or that 4 hour low, which has just given us a nice break of structure on the 15-minute time frame, as highlighted here. Right, so when price comes back up into an area where we've had a break of structure, naturally I'm looking for a reaction. What would have been better as price come back into that 15-minute order block, and what would have been the giveaway for me to actually take short positions, is if we had a snap of this area here, continued lower lows. Unfortunately, we didn't, which means that I cannot take this position immediately for a couple of reasons. I don't have a 15-minute order block to look to manipulate. All I have is previous daily highs and a session high where price is failing to break above and below. So I really need to see some confirmation coming out of this area. So it doesn't mean I'm going to be looking to take that position now. What it means is I'm going to have to wait for price to push up into these areas first and foremost. Once I get that, then I can look for my entry criteria, pull back into that area for a short. Better still, if I'm being super patient, and the best case scenario for you guys to take this position is wait for price to break this area, break Asia lows, break some significant structure points in the market for us, i.e. if I draw it on, it makes a hell of a lot more sense. Area in the market, break that area, pull back. So again, it's not going to be one of those positions where you can take now. You've got to be patient if you want to take the best type of entry criteria, or setup criteria, what I should say. But because of, again, the time of the day, time of the week, or the day of the week, it doesn't really seem as if you are to wait for that, what is more than likely going to be is a deeper pullback for a higher high. So me personally, I will be looking to get in this position sooner rather than later. I will accept that risk, but understand that my targets are very clearly defined by way of weekly and 4 hour 50 MA, where price is already looking to reject towards that end of the week. So how that would look, if I can get the turnaround in that area, here are my clear targets down here, potentially Asia low, but 4 hour 50 MA is definitely going to govern that. So then it means I'm going to have to manipulate my stop loss to make it make sense. So potentially around a 25 pip stop loss. So the higher price gets into that previous daily high into this session high, I'm able to move my entry slightly higher without doing anything like so. This is like that. This is very much so my fixed entry criteria, my fixed take profit. So that's where I'm standing at GCAD at the moment. And to be fair, as I start to skim round EU, what do we have on EU? There's not much else, to be quite honest. EU, we're now pulling up into that 4-hour order block. There's no real reason, higher time frame, why I should be really trusting this 4-hour order block just now. At the moment, it is just a 4-hour order block. So it's not, and as I can see here, I've not even marked this chart up, to be quite honest. But with that said, would I be looking to take that position immediately? No. Again, I'm going to need to see some significant areas of the market that have had a snap to prove to me that this 4-hour order block is worth actually refining down, because there are always order blocks everywhere. You use your higher time frame to govern reasons why that is a valid point of interest, and then from that moment onwards, you look for the short position. If I had a daily order block in this area, then of course I'd be happier to look into it. Do I have a daily order block? Okay, so yeah, we're operating within that order block. So let's do this now live, and I'll call this the last pair that I'll break down on YouTube today. So here at a point in time was a daily order block. So that's good news. Nice place to start. So let's superimpose that across all time frames to see where we lie. So we refine that order block down. Here's the daily, so it's a good place to start. Let's have a look at that wick imbalance. Is that a weekly wick imbalance? Yes, it is. So let's clone this wick imbalance from that weekly. In fact, let's copy it. I've done that the long way. Let's just draw it on. So what do we have here? We have, this is a wick imbalance from the weekly time frame, again, where some liquidity could well lie. We'll keep it as simple as that. We'll shut that on all intervals and see where that is. So is a 4-hour order block valid at the moment? Yes, I'll say it is indeed. So let's have a look to see reasons why we might well be looking to take a short position on this particular pair, EU. Right, so have I done all the work that needs to be done on the daily time frame? I'd say so. So we've got that daily 50 MA looking to support the shorts. Of course, okay, it looks all right. The most recent weekly candle closed below that weekly 50 MA. So as price comes back up into that area, I'm expecting rejection from that area to the downside with the rest of the current weekly candle, hoping that current candle will close below that weekly 50 MA. Okay, it makes sense. Potentially something I've missed this morning. Right, so is it ready now? That's the question. So we use the DXY first and foremost to understand, is the DXY looking to strengthen at this time? So here is an area in the market where we were perceiving that there could be some strength coming out of the DXY, but also how that looks great is look at the DXY. We have another area. If price doesn't respect this area, we have another 15-minute order block just below where price could well come into on the DXY to give that bullish reaction. Would that make sense on EU? Yes, potentially it could. There is areas here where price could look to find reaction, still respecting the 4-hour order block. So are we ready now? Not really. I'm just going to move my alert slightly higher to see if we can get some breaks of structure towards the downside. Now, the 4-hour time frame, 4-hour price action, 4-hour structure, 4-hour, how are we respecting? Can I see any particular trends in the market? Everything just looks so small. That's a bit better. So if I be truthful to price, we've made a clear low from this area and we've come back up to potentially on the higher time frames using the daily. Here's the low, potential lower high for a lower low continuation. However, intraday perspective wise, here is a potential nothing yet, confirmed, higher high, higher low is now confirmed, higher low, higher high confirmed. But look what we've had here. A break right down through an area in the market where we would see price looking to hold up. So maybe, just maybe, this could well be the true pullback for that lower low. And of course, we're expecting rejection of that weekly 50 MA for the week. So maybe this thought process is correct. Right, so 15-minute time frame. When and where can I look for a short position? So as I look to refine the daily and the 4-hour order block down, we've got a couple of areas. We've got a 15-minute here, that's very much so available. Price is now tapped into that area now. And we have this 15-minute order block right there up at the highs of the daily. So if you were to ask me, Charles, what's the best order block I could look to take? I'll say short from as high as possible and long from as high as possible. That doesn't mean I'm going to skip this if I get my entry criteria I will very much so be in a short position, and I would simply just understand that I have a reason to lose that position. I'm taking a trade from not the best or not the highest 15-minute order block. You also have these areas up at the high, but they're not contained within the daily. They're not contained within the work that I've just done using top-down analysis. Why also does this make sense? Well, of course, we've got Asia lows to fill, Asia here to fill as well. Let's put these in the correct place. And it all starts to make sense in my opinion. So again, we've had that break to the low, pull back into an area of interest. We validated that point of interest. I'm looking for short. So something that I could have missed is very much so top of the tree at the moment. So I'm looking for EU shorts. I'm looking at potential AU shorts, which also looks all right, I'd say, at the moment. We've obviously broken above here, so I need to see something happen, but it's looking quite good. I'll use GU for a bit of confirmation and confluence as well. Would I be ready to short GU? At the moment, no. I've got a 50-minute order block up here, so potentially what that's telling me is EU also might not be ready, and EU might push slightly higher. And that's also telling me that AU might not be ready, AU might push slightly higher. We've got a 15-minute order block up there, and it's also telling me that if it's not ready, then potentially then the DXY is more than likely going to come down to this area, reject the daily as we spoke about initially, reject the weekly for the week, and then that's when the bullish pressure is going to look to come out of the DXY. Right, team, I'm going to call it a day there. You've been listening for more than enough time now, and I'll leave you with that. It's just approaching 25 minutes to 11 here, local time in Milan. Very much so, London has opened, and we're ready for a brand new trading day of Q2. Very good luck in your trading journey. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for your support across all the socials. And again, just before you go, Frgnt Mastery, Frgntforex.com, I should say, is holding that 7-day free trial within Frgnt Mastery, where you'll gain access to much of the same. Just a little bit more dedicated per pair, Zoom calls for about an hour, pre-London Open, and we get into the nitty-gritty of the chart. So thank you very much for your attention. I do appreciate it. All the very best in your trading journey, and for sure, you will hear from me soon. Take care. Charles.